Race one of a doubleheader weekend here in Sebring saw 2023 GT America powered by AWS champion Memo Gidley break through for his first win of 2025. We're ready to go again in hot and humid conditions here on this Sunday, day two of racing for this championship. Multi-class racing, sprint racing as well, very much at the heart of what this paddock has been about for decades. It's already a warm day, temperatures getting up into the 80-degree range on the Fahrenheit scale, 33 degrees Celsius, and that humidity in the air. Well, that's really what is going to be sapping the energy from these drivers today. 40 minutes of sprint racing coming your way here in just a few moments. Ryan Marine, Calvin Fish in the broadcast booth. The drivers in their race cars, Cal, getting ready to go. They had one run at this already yesterday. What have they learned about their cars and these conditions here at Sebring?
Well, 40 minutes around this racetrack in this heat is certainly a challenge, but they got a little respite here with being the first race of the day. So cooler conditions, that should make the cars feel a little bit better, particularly when they get late in the going. But it was a brilliant performance by Memo Gidley yesterday. He had that 5-second penalty for an infraction on the false grid before he even took off onto the racetrack. He got his head down. That was classic Gidley, just super experienced, super poised, and just managed to eke out by about 3 or 4 tenths at the end of the day, that gap, so that he still beat Justin Rothberg. So he's deep in the points, didn't do the first couple of events, so they're on the back foot championship-wise, but they're just out to have fun, win races, and they're doing it right now. Rothberg, decent day, but Washington, who's closest to him in the championship, starts from pole here today. That could be a real factor with that track position early.
Certainly, big performance from Kyle Washington yesterday in terms of setting the fastest lap of the race. That nets him pole position, and he starts out front. Now, Memo Gidley won from second on the grid yesterday. He was very aggressive from the get-go, right, to get to the lead, which he then managed the rest of the way. Kyle Washington, though, he's a tough guy to get around under any circumstances.
He is. He's learned so much over the last couple of years running with GMG, and he's got Tom Sargent, who he shares a car with in GT World Challenge America, so he's got a great sounding board there. James Safronis is always around supporting his friend and client, of course. So he's got all of the tools. He's learning the trade. And as you said, he's aggressive. He's not afraid to get his elbows out. He's not afraid to stick it in there and deal with what the car will give him mid-corner if he's carried too much speed. And I think he's going to be pumped. He's not going to let Memo just have it easy here on this opening lap. But it's really all about which car comes alive the quickest. And that can be a real factor in terms of just having enough grip to work with and make it happen.
Saw the thumbs up from Kyle there. He is ready to go. 5 consecutive podium finishes for Kyle Washington, including a pair of wins. There's yesterday's winner, Memo Gidley. He too ready to go. As you said, just started this championship at the last round at Circuit of the Americas, missed the first 4 races. And at COTA, admittedly not one of his best tracks, he would tell you the same thing, but also getting used to this car. It's a new team for him too. Seems like they've really hit their stride here in Sebring.
They have, and I think it's exciting for us in the championship, Ryan, because, you know, we love that factor where you got the older generation, the more experienced guy who's just loving life late in their career, enjoying the competition here in GT America versus the young guns like Justin Rothberg. So it's great to see. We had Johnny O'Connell fighting the kid, as he called him last year. Now we've got Memo back on form and running at the front end of the pack as well.
Talked a lot about SRO 3, but there is a second class as well, GT4. Through the first 6 races, really it was the story of Max Hewitt fighting with Tony McIntosh. Max has moved on to Pirelli GT4 America, had a really good race yesterday, in fact. But there to fill the void was Mike Fitzpatrick. What a race he had. Did some leading early on in the race and then kept Tony McIntosh honest in that run to the checkered flag.
Yeah, he did, and he's actually going to have pole position here in GT4, so it's not going to be easy. It was great to see someone else step up and give Fitzpatrick giving McIntosh the challenge here yesterday. Let's see if that battle resumes here today on day 2.
We also had Farhan Siddiqui in the GT4 class yesterday. That chassis was damaged, though, in the Pirelli GT4 America race in the evening yesterday. Did not see that car on the grid, and as a consequence, it's a possibility that it may not be taking the start here today. We'll keep an eye out for that as we look at the wind blowing that American flag that some of these fans have brought to the racetrack. That breeze certainly welcome on a weekend like this.
Very much so. Just keeps the air moving, takes off the bite of the intensity of the sun. You know, coming to Sebring in May, you know it's going to be torturous, but the temperatures even this weekend are a little above what I think everyone was expecting coming into this weekend.
This track is a classic, Calvin. You've been fortunate enough to win here at Sebring International Raceway. What makes this such a challenge for car and driver alike?
Well, it's so unique. So much of the circuit still is run on the old concrete runways, just under 3 miles on the concrete, just under a mile on asphalt. It's about 3 3/4 miles in length totally. But so many challenging corners, so many big brake zones. But the bumps, getting the car suspension to work over the big bumps around here, particularly through that final corner, Sunset Bend, turn 17, it's a real challenge. Difference in grip levels between the concrete and the blacktop, particularly when you get the intensity with the blacktop getting more sun baked into it versus the bleached concrete runways that we're looking here at pit exit.
17 turns, 3.7 miles around Sebring International Raceway. Hosted its first ever race on the final day of 1950, the Sam Collier 6-hour memorial race. Of course, this venue most famous for the 12-hour race that happens each spring here on the site of the former Hendricks Army Airfield Bomber Training Base. B-17 pilots trained here from 1941 through 1946, and it maintains its aeronautical heritage as well, with Sebring Regional Airport located adjacent to the grounds. It's still active. Here's the starting grid. Kyle Washington on the Rover pole position. Memo Gidley, winner yesterday, will start alongside in his Audi. Second row belongs to Justin Rothberg, the points leader, and Ross Schwest for Schwest Povolato Racing, set to roll off in the 4th position. Then we get to Mirko Schultes. Difficult day for him yesterday in that Callaway Corvette, but he's a hard charger. Keep an eye on him. Michael Fitzpatrick on pole in GT4 with Tony McIntosh and Farhan Siddiqui. Unclear as to whether or not he'll be able to take the start. That car again damaged in the GT4 America race yesterday. That's the look at the starting grid. Just the one formation lap here today, Cal. Shouldn't be any trouble getting temperatures into these Pirelli P0s.
You're probably trying not to overheat them.
Yeah.
On this formation lap.
What a contrast from the way the season opened. If you recall, back in Sonoma, everything was so cold and chilly, and everyone hanging on for dear life at the start of these races. There was some moisture as well, as I recall. Interesting to come to Sebring with all the humidity in the air, but really the forecast has not been calling for rain at all through the time that we've spent here in Florida.
No, and that's unusual. In Florida, you typically get those afternoons thunderstorms kind of pop up because of the intensity of the heat and the humidity, but it's been a clean week, in fact, with the testing as well. So here we see Gidley just working those tires in a little bit, just trying to keep them clean as much as warming them up with that violent steering left and right. Drivers tend to use the brake pedal running up against the gas pedal at the same time to generate heat through the uprights and everything to build tire temperature, core temperature, and surface temp at the same time. But I think Gidley knows if he's got a chance at winning this race, he wants to get out front and manage it like he did yesterday. And we thought he was vulnerable at one point, but then when he got that message, you got to build a 5-second gap, he just went. I think for Rothberg, he maybe over-managed it, thinking maybe I need some tires at the end of this race. Allowed Gidley suddenly over the course of 2 or 3 laps to build a big 3-4 second lead, and then it was like go time, and he didn't quite have enough to, keep it within that 5-second gap.
It was an impressive performance from the 2023 champ, who spent last year on the sidelines, but that 2023 championship season was a remarkable one. 8 wins, 15 podiums, 8 poles, and 7 times he had the fastest lap of the race en route to the title. Safety car starts to accelerate away, which means we are moments away from going green on the second race of the weekend for GT America, powered by AWS. Field in good alignment, coming through Sunset Bend, turn 17, more like Sunrise Bend here this morning. Relatively early start to this thing. The field enters the VP acceleration zone. We wait for the green flag, and there it is. Kyle Washington, a decent jump in the E-Boost Porsche. Gidley waits to get past that start-finish line to move out of column, settles in line. Schwest challenging Rothberg for the 3rd spot, but he too settles in line. In the top 5 at least run nose to tail.
Yeah, pretty cautious start by a leading pack. They're heading down into turn 1. Everyone giving each other a little bit of room. Little lock up there from Gidley. Kyle Washington, really nice start there, and he's got his head down. Really nice, clean first few corners. Gidley had that little moment down into turn 3, Christensen corner. Rothberg's already dropped back from Gidley. So Gidley can just focus forward once again. Let's just see over these first few laps which car seems to come to life. Here's Mirko Schultes weaving around, trying to make a move on Roche West there in the backdrop.
Yeah, that's the older Callaway Corvette, the C7-based Corvette GT3 machine, challenging the newest offering from GM, the C8-based Corvette Z06 GT3R. That's at the back of the SRO3 field. Meanwhile, Fitzpatrick has been able to hold off McIntosh. Tony made a couple of attempts in the background. We got a glimpse of it, trying to take the lead in GT4, but Fitzpatrick's been able to cover him off and continues to lead in that class. Washington, though, at the front of this field. That car had a couple of big moments for him yesterday, but he held them nicely.
Yeah, he really did. I think the car was working well, and a couple of times he overdrove it, but certainly settled down and almost caught Rothberg there and challenged that for that second position, which would have really made a big difference in the points. He actually lost points yesterday. The gap right now in the championship chase is Rothberg leading by 12 points over Kyle Washington.
Kyle, originally from Canada, now calls Indio, California home, having his best season to date at the GT3 level. A couple of wins here in GT America as Schultes takes a peek to the inside of Roche West. Ross gives him enough room to coexist at apex, carries nice speed though around the outside, and Schwest is able to fend off the challenge.
Yeah, it looked like that Callaway's got a little bit more straightaway speed than the more modern version of the Corvette race car. Schwest did a nice job there, gave him a little bit of room. It gets really tight and funnels down towards the end of that concrete wall at the end of Ullman straightaway into Sunset as you get into that brake zone.
It's a 6.2-liter V8 in that Callaway Corvette, and Mirko Schultes putting it to use, attacking Roche West into the brake zone for turn 3. Now the kink to the right, that's turn 4. Back to the left here for turn 5. Then turn 6, known as Big Bend. That's easy flat in these GT3 cars. Right through here, and the run down to turn 7. Great passing zone at the hairpin.
It is, and there you see it once you get to that mid-range power sector on these straightaways. Callaway seems to come to life a little bit. I'm not sure if it's power or just aero efficiency there.
That Corvette, the Callaway Corvette, was developed independently by Callaway Cars. Reeves Callaway, of course, that had headed that up for so many years. Lost Reeves a couple of years ago. But this car has had a great deal of success over in Europe. Really, there was a prohibition against it racing in the States for a very long time, with Corvette wanting to focus the attention on its factory effort, as you would imagine. But over in Europe, in series like ADAC GT Masters, that Callaway Corvette has won a lot of races and championships.
It really has, and I think the reason is they don't want it competing up against their current generation race car like we're seeing right now. So I think that's why they kind of said, please keep that to one side. We've got new cars that we want to sell to our customers and promote.
Back to the front, Nemo Gidley keeping Kyle Washington honest. This is going to be quite a drive from Kyle. If he can hang on for the next 36 minutes, long way to go, of course, but that would be a win he could relish, fending off a former IndyCar driver and top-line prototype driver as well back in the day, Nemo Gidley.
Washington, really nice lap there, a couple of tenths quicker than both Gidley and Rothberg, who are following him. Really pushed the car hard through turn 17. He's got a little bit of understeer, which is fine, but if it's excessive and you've got a lot of turn in the steering wheel and then you hit a bump, it's very easy to loosen up the rear when the car's in that condition, so you got to be on your toes a little bit. Tires are still pretty good right now, so as we get a little deeper into that race, you got to watch you don't go from a understeer to a snap oversteer condition in the race car.
Coached for the last couple of years by Tom Sargent, who has emerged as a really exciting young talent in tin tops. We'll see him later on today in GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. They always say it only takes 2 cars to make a race, and GT4 right now is proof positive of that. Fitzpatrick from pole has led every lap so far, but Tony McIntosh is right there at his tire tracks.
Fun to watch these 2 cars. It seemed like the Aston has got great speed, of course, has got the lead in the race. It seems to have to flow around the racetrack where it seems like that Super can kind of cut a little bit tighter through some of these corners, but at this point, McIntosh still trying to figure out a way through. He did it yesterday. Let's see what happens here today.
Fitzpatrick from Maryland, that's where this team 89X has been based, although we got the report yesterday that they have a new facility nearby this racetrack right here in Sebring, Florida, so a bit of a home race. Expect to see Mike at VIR the next time out, which is also considered a home race with their shop in Maryland, not too far down the road.
Yeah, and we understand they got more cars in their hands and ready to operate more customer programs. So certainly putting on a performance like this weekend will help that cause and generate interest, I'm sure.
Mike himself, a former AMA superbike racer, bike builder as well, has been doing racing on four wheels for a few years and has won club level regional championships in the past. McIntosh pulls out of line in that bright orange Toyota Supra, not close enough to make a real lunge there.
See right there, see how the Supra can just kind of carve that corner with a slightly tighter radius. Aston just really flowing around the circuit with big curves going through some of these complex corners.
Some fun liveries on McIntosh's cars this year. This bright yellow, or excuse me, bright orange really grabs your attention. They've got that blue for their Pirelli GT4 America car that was really quick yesterday, if you'll recall. Attention grabbing, which helps us.
Well, you want to stand out a little bit from the crowd, certainly get some attention. Iconic liveries are certainly fun for the race fans to generate interest.
3 wins on the season for McIntosh. He's not finished worse than second through 5 races. Did not run at Long Beach, interestingly. Elected to forego that street course race, as did his championship rival at the time, Max Hewitt, who now he has to square off against in Pirelli GT4 America, the multi-driver 1 hour format for GT4 only that you'll see coming up a little bit later on this morning, right around 11 o'clock local time.
Tell you what, these two up front are very evenly matched. I think Carl seems to have an advantage through sector 1, so I'm not sure if he's just able to carry a bit more speed through turn 1. That will lead to that sector time.
A couple of laps ago, Justin Rothberg had a moment. This wasn't on this lap, but this was, I believe, the previous lap. Coming out of turn 16 onto the Ullman straight, drops a couple of wheels. Oh, that's a wild ride. That goes a long way as well to explaining why suddenly he is so far behind the top 2.
Yeah, he has dropped back quite a margin right now, and that's just an understeer. It wasn't like he lost it earlier, just he's struggling to get the car onto the straightaway, front end just washing out wide right towards the end of that curb, and then you go for a rough ride, of course. Real concern is then damaging the underside, the front there, the front splitter, but they run them pretty high off the deck now with the regulations and the minimum ride height, as you can see, as it goes down this big bend straightaway, let's call it.
Yeah, it's full throttle, that's for sure. They treat it like a corner, even though the track does bend to the right, as the name would imply. Washington has been phenomenal in this race. He just did the fastest lap of the race the last time by, about 0.2 of a second faster than Memo Gidley, and he's starting to build that gap over the much more experienced Californian.
He does, and he's continued to push there. You can see the car right on the threshold in braking there for Cunningham Corner. He's really got the bit between his teeth today, and so far, so good. Controlled the car really well on that opening lap. No snaps, no mistakes, no running wide. This will just build and build his confidence the deeper as he gets into this race. Then you got to think about the psyche of leading a race and bringing it home and not succumbing to the pressure and starting to make little mistakes and allowing someone like Gidley, who's just monotonous with his pace, to suddenly close in on you and pounce towards the end.
Kyle's still fairly new to circuit racing. He's got a background in off-road racing. Won a 400-mile race on the Baja Peninsula back in 2019 before switching his focus to sports cars. Did some GT2 racing through the 2020 season, and then has just been so busy running in multiple championships, single make Porsche racing here in SRO, other championships too, which has helped to accelerate that learning process as he adapts to a new discipline.
Yeah, I think he told me he's done about 30 races this year, so he'll continue to build on that foundation of knowledge Here's a great battle. Mirko Schultes down to the inside. Late move, but makes it stick. Roche West gives it up to him. Those two Corvettes are having a wonderful battle here for what is P4 at the moment.
Great job by Mirko, the veteran from Freiburg, Germany. Former Petite Le Mans class winner. That was a good battle, you're right, between these two, Roche West and Mirko Schultes. Schultes through to pick up the 4th spot. Nice bounce back after some kind of a technical issue yesterday. Not exactly sure what befell them.
Yeah, he did drop back there for the second phase of the race. It's also been a busy weekend for them. They had to change a motor overnight on Friday. Discovered a crack in the cylinder block. So that's a lot of work for a relatively small group and organization there to do that on a race weekend. This battle in GT4 is not going anywhere. They seem so evenly matched. McIntosh continuing to try and work out a solution to this puzzle, but Fitzpatrick just seems pretty stoic, doesn't he? He's not really making any mistakes or opening up the door.
Exactly. I think you said it well yesterday when McIntosh saw the entry list and saw no Max Hewitt. He probably thought this was going to be his weekend, and all of a sudden, here comes Mike Fitzpatrick turning up for the first time and giving him a real fight. That time a little bit wide there in 7, and that opens the door. Here comes McIntosh trying to get to the flank of the Aston.
Yeah, I noticed that on a previous lap. You could hear a lot of tire squealing. He's fighting the car through there. I'm not sure if he's just overcharging the corner or maybe the gear that he's using is a little bit higher and you don't get that engine retardation and kind of get the bike you're looking for through the apex. McIntosh feels this is the opportunity. You got to ebb and flow with each other there. It's hard to make that move because the car's leaning to the left as you're trying to sneak underneath someone there into turn 13. There's a lot of kind of you're over to the left-hand side there, and it's tough to make that stick without getting in the side of the race car that's about to turn into that corner.
It does look like McIntosh can put that Supra just about anywhere he wants to, and as you pointed out earlier, maybe Fitzpatrick has to follow a more prescribed line in order to extract the speed.
This is fun, though. I mean, for McIntosh, I'm sure he'd like to be leading this race and walking away, but I'm sure he's enjoying the fight nonetheless.
Again, moving to the inside. Fitzpatrick about a half a lane off of the ultimate outside of the track. Into turn 17 here, maybe the bumpiest part of this racetrack.
Oh, for sure. It's a wild ride. I mean, modern day technology with suspension systems and damping has made that a lot smoother ride than what you saw decades ago, but racetrack hasn't got any smoother through there. They haven't changed it. But, you know, we see McIntosh just easing out of the draft down that back straightaway, and that's because you got to keep air to the front end when you're running this close behind a competitor, and the heat and the track temperature. You're just going to have those engine temperatures. So he looks to the inside. That was tight there. He's getting feisty. Still a long way to go in this race. No need to really take any big chances right now and risk having contact. Oh! Dropped the wheel.
And around he goes into the tire barrier. Fitzpatrick from the lead of the race. This is likely to bring out the safety car. McIntosh is through. Not the way I'm sure he was hoping to take the lead. That had been a really good battle. But Fitzpatrick ends up in the tire barrier on the outside of the circuit. Yeah,
certainly not what Kyle Washington wants. Look at the gap that he's established up front. He's just got to hammer down. His best lap is 3/4 of a second clear of Gidley and the chasers. So if we do go yellow, all of that good work is going to be erased, and then it's all about, well, did Gidley and Rothberg save their tires a little bit more as we say that?
Wow.
Fitzpatrick has got the Aston Martin out of the fence. Wow, this is a huge save for Kyle Washington and GMG. The fact that the Aston Martin is mobile. Look at that, there's not that much damage. Obviously tipped the rear wing up and broke that, but bodywork-wise on the tail end, it looks pretty straight.
It's amazing what the tire barrier can do. Here come the overall leaders past that stricken Aston Martin. So much better to hit the tire bundles than the Armco or certainly concrete.
And if you hit them kind of straight on or reverse straight in, you don't get that second whip. Do you know what I mean? It just absorbs it, pushes it back out. We've seen that with a number of incidents where if you hit head on, you think, oh, it's going to be a big one. But in terms of damage, it's not getting into the suspension and suddenly tearing the race car apart.
Fitzpatrick has stopped the car. Not sure exactly where this is, if this is a safe place or not.
Is that down in the turn 7 runoff area, possibly?
Might be.
There's a little extra room down there. This is where the turn 7 turn-in point used to be.
Right.
I believe that's what we're looking at. As you can see, there was very little runoff, and if you lost brakes there, you're basically looking at the trees.
When you were racing here, was this the path that turn 7 took, that deeper run?
Yeah, it was. It was.
It was shortened up, I understand, due to some safety concerns to give some runoff there. And I've heard this configuration of the hairpin referred to as the safety pin as a consequence. And I always rather liked that. I haven't heard it catch on yet, but I'm going to keep trying. Another look at this here, Cal.
This gets out wide. It's a tricky corner, and he kind of missed the curbing. He got out wide right at the very end. Didn't allow the car to get up on the curb and kind of save you. And just drops the wheel, and you got a lot of combined in at that point in terms of throttle and steering at the same time.
Well, we had seen that car, it seemed like he needed to use all the road to get the speed out of it, which put him perilously close to the edge. Just went that little bit over it, and that's how quickly this place can bite you.
Tell you what, Washington, this is a superb performance. Long way to go yet. We're not at the halfway point, but so far this has been best performance we've seen from Kyle Washington in either championship.
Unquestionably. His last lap was 0.6 of a second faster than anyone else that last time by.
And fast lap by 0.7 for the day, so.
Backing up the pace he displayed yesterday to secure the pole here for race 2. This is potentially pretty big in the points with Rothberg down in 3rd.
It's a 10-point swing, and he's got a 12-point gap he's trying to close. So as they run, it'll be 2 points heading to the next rounds at VIR.
Now, Rothberg was denied the title last year by just a single point. And again, kind of similar to the McIntosh story. Probably came into this year, looked around, and thought, this could be my year to redeem myself and go for the championship. But Kyle Washington has brought his game to a whole new level. And that's been on display really all season long. I go back to the win he had at Sonoma in those really difficult conditions. It was wet, it was cold, people were going off track left and right, but he kept it on the black stuff and was able to secure the victory.
Well, I think he's brave. I think he's got good car control. And I think also he's now recognizing when you have that little nuance, you're a little bit offline, that the sight, the picture through the corner doesn't look right. He corrects it sooner now, and rather than just trying to drive through it, and that makes a huge difference.
Well, Amanda Busick is on drag racing duty here today, so we've drafted in Jonathan Grace to help patrol the pit lane for us, and Jonathan has this update.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here. I wish it was a better update for the 89X Aston Martin crew. Fitzpatrick was able to drive the car away from the wall miraculously under his own power, but he drove it behind the wall. The crew scattered from pit lane. The only thing left here is the pit equipment. They're taking the car back to the garage. Unfortunately, it's going to be a one-horse race from here on out. That Super is going to lead the charge, with the Fast MD car also not taking to the grid. We understand it's likely due to that big crash they sustained yesterday, but as long as McIntosh can keep it clean, it looks to be a one Super race from here on out, but a tough way to end for the 89X crew.
Yeah, certainly so. Thanks for the update, Jonathan. We can see Mike out of the car. This is what ended his race just a handful of laps ago.
Yeah, it just gets right to the very end of the curbing, and then at the end of that, you're in the dirt, of course, and you got no grip. So he was just hanging on to it. We said there was kind of you could see the natural flow he's having to use all the way around the circuit, and when you're doing that, and in that particular spot, it's easy to drop a wheel. You need to have the can straight, corner still turning there and bending a little bit, so that's why he lost the rear end.
Does still have the fastest lap of the race. He had that yesterday, too, to get the class pole. Fitzpatrick exciting to have him and that team as part of the championship. But a difficult way to end the first weekend as we reach the halfway mark of race 2. And at this point, Tony McIntosh just needs to have a clean run, and he'll have another race win. It will be his first weekend sweep of the season, interestingly. He had split in the first 2 weekends that he had contested at Sonoma and at Circuit of the Americas. He'd always won race 1 and had never won race 2.
Yeah, he and Max Stewart had a nice little battle, came into this weekend tied in the points. Obviously, Max has pushed all of his attention to Pirelli GT4. As you said, had a great run here yesterday. Looking for more in about an hour's time. But meanwhile, the battle between the old versus the new generations of the Corvette race car.
Talked about that 6-liter power plant in the Callaway Corvette. In the Z06 GT3R that Rod Schwest is driving, 5.5-liter V8, naturally aspirated as you would expect, flat crank. The car was publicly unveiled at the 24 Hours of Daytona back in 2023. This is the first real customer program for Corvette racing. They have, on occasion, offered cars up to customers. Labra competition comes to mind, and some of the runs they've made at Le Mans, and there have been a few other examples of it too. But by embracing GT3, really for the first time as a factory, that there comes with it the expectation and really the requirement that you make cars available to customers and customer teams, all the customer support that goes along with it. And GM has seemingly embraced that model with a lot of teams now competing all around the world.
Yeah, with a lot of great support, and I think for a team like Schwest Parvaledo trying to up their game a little bit, they obviously looked hard and serious at all of the manufacturers that are represented on the grid, but for DXDT to do what they did in GT World Challenge America by winning, what was it, 8 races?
Yes, 8 in a row.
8 in a row. They had to take a close look at that Corvette, and I think when they went to them and approached them, they then saw the type of support the Corvette were willing to give them was really kind of the key ticking of the box to move forward and commit to the program.
One thing I thought was interesting when this car was being developed before, they really were thinking about designing the ergonomics of the cockpit with a racing driver in mind. And racing drivers have a certain body shape that you would expect.
Typically.
They had to think of things a little bit differently when it came to creating a customer car for someone like Ross Schwest, who's a former college basketball player. Tall guy, big frame, trying to find ways of improving ingress and egress in and out of the car, making the car comfortable for just about anybody. That's something that Pratt and Miller never had to think about before, at least not to this degree.
When I raced back in the day, Ryan, the tires were skinny and the drivers were big, and now it's the opposite, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. The sport has evolved quite a bit, of course. Interesting that since Schultes has made the pass, Schwest has been able to sit there right at his tire tracks and not let him get away.
Yeah, having a really good little battle. I mean, their fastest laps are separated by just 0.04 of a second. They're running laps, about a second off of Gidley, so they're running pretty competitive lap times here. Carl Washington seems to be in his own zip code here this morning. Just super impressive. His fastest lap is a 2:02.7 versus Gidley's 2:03.4. Rothberg's cut in at a 2:03.3 here a little bit later in the race.
These two have run best lap times within 38 thousandths of a second of one another. Not much to separate Mirko Schultes and Ross Schwest. Mentioned Ross is a former college basketball player, started his career at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, ended up back home at LSU. But his high school career, Calvin, in 1998 and 1999, he was Louisiana High School All-State. And when he graduated, he was the all-time leader at his school in assists and steals, second in scoring. So he was a real dominant player on the hardwood. And basketball really is the family sport. He's kind of the first, along with his uncle, who was one of the founders of NOLA Motorsports Park outside of New Orleans, to do the racing thing. But the family, the Schwest family, for a time was a part owner of the New Orleans Pelicans NBA team.
I think the fact that he was the all-time leader that year in steals kind of is an insight to his personality in terms of he's not going to give up and he's going to be persistent and see if he can steal this position back from Schultes here late in the going.
Yep, you're right. He's had a rapid ascent up the ranks. Started off in Lamborghini Super Trofeo racing, and that's actually where he met Aaron Povolato, who helped to do some coaching. Won a Super Trofeo LB Cup championship almost a decade ago now. Went into Ferrari Challenge, won a title there. Champion at the GT4 level of GT America in an era where there were some pretty stout GT4 grids.
Yeah, I think he kind of came from nowhere at Indy, right? Swept
Correct.
Indy, as I recall, in 2023?
22.
22. Time flies. But yeah, it was a wild weekend and nipped the championship at the wire.
Yeah,
Always wide. Mirko's a little bit wide there. He's got in a little bit deep. Got to stay focused here. Heat is definitely a factor, even though, as we said, it's a lot cooler conditions than what they ran here a little bit later in the day yesterday. But even so, you got to stay focused for 40 minutes. That's a good stint in these race cars that tend to be pretty hot, even though the later generations have a lot of cooling within the cockpit to try and ease that pain on the drivers as Mirko's team looks on.
That is the Mission Motors team. Had to miss the last round of the season at Circuit of the Americas, but happy to have them back. Car, a fan favorite, and I do love the fact that you get that older version as well as the new Corvette racing side by side here in this championship. Kyle Washington continues to push. His middle sector was the best of the race. This lap, a 2:03.1. That's only 0.4 off of the best lap of the race this deep into the run. His lead now has ballooned to 4.3 seconds over Memo Gidley, who ran a 2:03.6. Rothberg marginally quicker than Gidley, but has a lot of ground to try and claw back. 2.6 seconds behind Gidley, running in third.
Yeah, totally dominant run here by Kyle so far this morning. He continues to push. And I think what they're doing is that I think they're learning a lot from that race car as well, potentially for this afternoon. We talk about how important running in GT America is for preparation with GT World Challenge America. Well, that race is 90 minutes long, and you got 50-minute maximum drive time, which you typically give to your pro to maximize their speed. So Car's 40-minute stint here is going to mimic what he's going to do this afternoon, and by continuing to push rather than easing back, he'll get a really good read, and the team will, in terms of what these tires are doing here in these conditions. But I'd have to say what I'm super surprised by, and we shouldn't be because we know how great the Pirelli P0 is, but the fact that in these conditions, we saw it yesterday, that they can run so competitively in terms of lap times compared to the beginning of the stint when the tires are in their sweet spot. Yes, the fuel load burns off and the car theoretically should be a little bit quicker, but we saw times yesterday run at their fastest at the end of 40, 50-minute runs.
Right, well, we saw that at Sonoma on a relatively new surface in those cool conditions. Thought, okay, I mean, great job by Pirelli, certainly, but you can see why the conditions might lend themselves to that kind of thing. But here, coming into the weekend, there was a lot of talk about tire wear and concern that you would have to manage it given the heat and given the nature of this circuit. But that really has not manifested itself in what we've seen through the first couple of days.
Looking at this little battle here, and there seems to be a different dynamic going on right now. Schwest suddenly looks a little bit more pacey and racy. And I'm not sure if it's just, I hate to say this because I know Mirko works out hard to be prepared for these races, but it just seems like he's faded a little bit, saw a little moment down in turn 7. I think he's got to really keep his focus. I think that team needs to get on the radio to him, inspire him, encourage him to just keep digging deep. You got the pace in the race car. Let's not relax to the point that Ross Schwest can steal that 4th position away from you here.
Well, Ross will be just fine in these conditions, living as he does in Louisiana, which can be pretty similar to Florida this time of year in terms of the heat and the humidity. I suspect some of the driver comfort in the newer C8 car is a little bit more sophisticated than perhaps in that older Callaway Corvette. We'll keep an eye on this battle, but Jonathan Grace has an update for us down in the pits.
Yeah, guys, it's been one of the more entertaining battles to watch today. Just such a difference between these two cars, that older fan favorite Callaway and the newer C8 generation Corvette behind. I've spoken to both teams, and Mission Motors saying that Mirko Schultes is dead silent on the radio. Interestingly, Schwest Pavoleto Racing saying that Ross Schwest has also been pretty silent, although they feel like that newer Z06 GT3.R is faster in pretty much every braking zone on corner entry. There's such a lack of downforce on that older generation Callaway straightaway. I know it's something that I've spoken to Mirko about in the past, saying that's really the area where this car struggles. It might have a lot of grunt, a lot of straight line speed and aggression, but in the corners it really struggles around here. So it's interesting to see that he's doing a pretty good job of holding up that newer generation Corvette so far, but Ross saying he does feel a little bit stuck at the moment.
And we're seeing that play out on track. Thanks for the update. Interesting compare and contrast there between the two cars, and it goes to show how GT3 continues to evolve.
Oh, little moment there by Mirko. Just lost the tail end. Now he's going to be slow on the power. Schwest gets a run there through 16. A little bit out of sync there, getting on that back straightaway. But again, hopefully that aero efficiency that Jonathan alluded to. Great analyst there by Jonathan, and the comparison between these two very different generation of race cars.
Yeah, it just didn't look like Ross quite timed that right. He might have had to lift. He caught Mirko a little too soon. That cost him the momentum that he was building out of turn 16. That was a good opportunity there, but great recovery from Mirko Schultes.
You're also in your head from a driver's perspective. Why did that happen? Why did that car suddenly try to bite me? Does that limit your commitment here through turn 1? See Mirko there just not using all of the road there coming through turn 1. So I think he is feeling a little imbalance in this race car late in the going.
Great scrap continuing here between the native of Germany, Mirko Schultes, who loves his Chevy power, and Ross Schwest in his first year of racing a Corvette. To the inside, oftentimes even not in the heat of battle count, you'll see drivers veer off to the inside in that braking zone. Are they avoiding some bumps? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's quite bumpy there if you stay drivers left down into that brake zone there. It's a little bit like coming out of Casino Square at Monaco. You see the F1 cars sort of like swing over to the right and back to the left. So that's the ideal scenario. If you're doing that when someone's close behind you, you've got to watch you don't get the eye of the steward's office by moving around under braking. So you need to pick one side or the other. If you're down at the inside, you're compromising your entry. It's a lot smoother entry, but also there's not as much rubber down there. So there's kind of a yin and a yang to how you want to approach that corner.
Tony McIntosh letting the traffic come through. He's now running unopposed after Mike Fitzpatrick's incident about 9 laps ago. And Farhan Siddiqui unable to take the start, we believe, because of a crash in the Pirelli GT4 America race last night. This section of the track, Schwest has the edge.
I think Mirko there was very, very conservative. You could tell that spooked him a little bit with that little moment he had, and he was really carrying a lot less speed through that corner. But it's tough. You know, you can't run over the guy. I mean, if they're on line and just run a little bit slower, I think Schwest has just got to time it a little bit better. But I think he seems stymied by the fact that he doesn't have the straightaway speed. So right now, track position is king. I think if he was in front, I think he's got more lap time that he could run. Maybe chase away a little bit from Mirko, but right, Mirko's holding tough. Came through turn 1 on the last lap, middle of the road, does it again there. I think he's not feeling it in the high-speed corners, the balance of that race car.
Kyle Washington continues to lead overall. The gap over Memo Gidley, the winner yesterday, is nearly 6 seconds. Then it's 3.6 seconds back to Justin Rothberg. You've got to wait quite a while to get back to these two, about 24 further seconds back. But this has been the battle of the race since we had Mike Fitzpatrick drop out in GT4. That was a really good scrap as well, as it was yesterday. But Fitzpatrick, a spin, ended up in the tire barrier, had to withdraw that car, retire that car from the race. Schultes with some breathing room all of a sudden. He's putting this first sector together.
Yeah, it seemed like Schwest didn't get a good run there through turn 7 and got gapped a little bit on the acceleration run through Fangio down to Cunningham turn 10.
With 5 minutes, 18 seconds still to go, Memo Gidley, a winner yesterday, running a solid second today, Jonathan.
Yeah, and I think solid is a great way to describe it, Ryan, because he's running just about the same lap times that he won the race here yesterday, just 1 day ago on today. The difference is, and I think it's a pretty impressive difference, he's doing it on old tires. He put a fresh set of Pirelli rubber on yesterday. He's using a scrub set of tires. These are what he qualified on. Still producing the same lap times, but in speaking with the team, Ski Autosport saying, I think Kyle's just on a mission today. He's opened up something different. Memo is pushing as hard as he can. He seems pretty happy with the car, with the tires, with the pace, but I think at the moment, it's all that Audi's got.
It's really good intel about the tires. That is a controlled commodity on these race weekends. You get a certain amount, and how you manage that through the weekend is a big part of the strategy. And yesterday, clearly, that sticker set of tires helped him get to the front and stay there. But you take your medicine then in race 2.
You certainly do. See what Mirko does here. Another high-speed corner. Using a little bit more of the road that time. So we saw 2 laps after that little moment over in turn 15, 16. A little bit wide there for Christensen corner. So I think Mirko's having to be really delicate here with his inputs. It seems like if he stays aggressive with it, the car's snapping on him. So he's driving it that way, just trying to hang on here for the last 3 or 4 minutes.
Both drivers did their best lap of the race on that last lap. 2:04.3s for both of them. A quarter of a tenth of a second separated them on the last lap. Or if you prefer, 25 thousandths of a second. I imagine these two guys are having fun. I know Mirko loves the fight. Sometimes he's told us he's a little disappointed if he qualifies well, because that means he doesn't get to battle his way up through the field. You get the sense that Ross enjoys the wheel-to-wheel aspect of this too.
He really does, and for this group, they really feel like they're getting arms around this new Corvette racing platform. Aaron Parvaledo is a determined driver and partner here in this team that he's built with Ross Schwest, and they're determined to get this Corvette to the sharp end and fight for wins.
Took a big step forward, I thought, at Circuit of the Americas in particular. Their pace was right there with the group that they're racing with in GT World Challenge America. Ross as well in the GT America races seemed as at home as he has been. And it's not, it's sometimes you think, oh, you're just switching cars, how different can they be? But going from that Mercedes, which is very forgiving, very distinct, to this Corvette, a much different platform, a newer platform, there is going to be a period where you need to get acclimated.
You certainly do, and you can see there through turn 17, Ross is able to carve a much tighter line through that corner. Mirko's able to let the car float a little bit. Let's see what Ross can do through here. I think Mirko's vulnerable here through turn 1, but it seems like Ross is not able to pounce right there and be in position to make a move maybe down into this corner. See Mirko there also runs a slightly wider entry to the corner, which would open up the door if you were a little bit closer. I mean, time is running out, but if I was Ross Schwest, I'd be really focused on a big charge through turn 1, be close enough. If Mirko does stay a little bit to the right a little bit longer, there may be an opportunity, an opening down there to the inside.
A couple of Corvettes dueling for 4th and 5th here in race 2 of the weekend. Yesterday, Schwest finished in 5th, Schultes in 4th. That's how they run again today.
That was a nice run there through turn 10 by Ross Schwest. He's as close as he's ever been here. Tough to make it stick here, gives it up. Just got to focus here on the exit. Mirko's in shallow, doesn't get a good run through there. Here comes Ross Schwest.
Schwest to the outside, but look at the acceleration out of the corner there for Mirko Schultes in the Callaway Corvette, able to fend off the challenge. The white flag awaits Kyle Washington, the race leader by over 7 seconds. Just 1 lap to go for Kyle as he looks for his 3rd win of the season.
I love the fact he's flashing his headlights for the white flag. Hopefully he realizes there's no black on that. He's got 1 more lap to go, but this battle is staying exactly where it's been for most of this motor race.
Ah, fantastic. Nip and tuck between the two. Schultes took the spot, but Schwest has fought back and has been able to stay right there within touching distance of the Callaway Corvette.
Right there. He's tied it through there. He's got to keep it really tight. Ross Schwest has to really focus on a really good turn 1 and maybe he can pounce into turn 3.
Here they come into turn 1, down a couple of gears to the left. Schultes is nice and smooth. Schwest doesn't gain any ground. He's not close enough.
No, I'm not sure if he's getting any aero wash or running that close to the car in front, but he just doesn't seem to be able to eat in at the gap there. I think that car should run a little bit more minimum speed there than the older generation Callaway through that corner, but nonetheless, up front, Kyle Washington, what a stunning performance here this morning.
Absolutely eye-opening from Kyle Washington. A year ago, finished 4th in points, just 2 podium finishes across the entire season last year. He's now strung together 5, nearly 6 consecutive, nearly 7 consecutive podiums, already 2 wins on the season. Kyle Washington, at the top of his game, will take a chunk out of Justin Rothberg's points lead if he can bring it home with 1 more corner to go.
Just right from the get-go, he just wasn't touched. I mean, Gidley sort of looked like he's going to be a threat there for 3 or 4 laps, but Kyle just got his head down and just incredible lap times from his race car. Great setup by the team.
Washington lets it roll through Sunset Bend, flashes those headlights as the checkered flag waves for GMG Motorsports, and Kyle Washington, winner for the 3rd time in 2025. He fins off Memo Gidley, who comes across the line 7.5 seconds back. Points leader Justin Rothberg will have to settle for 3rd. No wins for Justin here this weekend. Here's the fight for 4th and 5th. Mirko Schultes, Ross Schwest bobbing to the inside now, weaving back to the outside, trying to line up a move for the run to the checkered flag as Schultes goes a little bit wide. Schwest tries to challenge, puts the power down off the corner, but Schultes covers him off. And at the checkered flag, it is the older Callaway Corvette that fins off the challenge from the new machine by 27 hundredths of a second. Schultes over Schwest for 4th and 5th. A lonely final 2/3 of the race for Tony McIntosh. Had a great duel going early on with Mike Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick's spin and wall contact eliminated him from contention, so it was incumbent upon Tony just to bring the car home, and he has done so. Checkered flag waves, and it's a sweep of the weekend for Anthony McIntosh at Sebring.
Yeah, great run. There's a tasty little battle that he had there at the beginning with Fitzpatrick. Unfortunately, Fitzpatrick made that little mistake coming through turn 5. Not too much damage to the race car, fortunately, and what typically is coming off there on that part of the racetrack. But Kyle Washington, I'm sure Justin Rothberg right now is scratching his head saying, boy, I've got to dig deep here. This championship is getting awfully tight. 2 points separating them now after the checkered flag here today.
Heading next to VIR, where Rothberg won a race and was 3rd in the other a year ago. Washington finished 5th in both of those races in GT America, but it's where he won his first GT World Challenge America race, his first ever GT3 race, in fact. So he'll have some happy memories returning to VIR in a few months. Yeah,
and you know he's going to get some seat time in between as well, so he always comes in well prepped because he doesn't stay idle for very long.
That's a really good point. And in stark contrast to Rothberg, we told that story a few times, did nothing over the winter, no testing, and has done limited testing this year too, and yet has been on the pace, the early championship leader in 2025. A look at the way race 2 of the weekend played out. Your class winners, Kyle Washington on the left for SRO 3, Tony McIntosh on the right. JTR Motorsports preparing a fast Toyota Supra once again. He picks up the win in GT4. Behind those two, though, did have some interesting fights to chronicle. Memo Gidley, a win in the 2nd place. Championship probably not in the cards this year, having missed the first 4 races of the season, but that's another strong result for them as he and that team continue to gel.
And Kyle Washington is running off the road what a lot of the drivers do to try and pick up rubber, but that car looks like it's tipped over to the right-hand side. I wonder if he's cut down a tire.
Wouldn't that be something on the final lap?
If that right rear is down. I mean, this is not unusual. By doing this, you're kind of building the weight of the race car and also the ride height to go through post-race tech, and he's gone into the back door, which is not where you're supposed to go, but I wonder if he does have a cut down tire.
Well, that's something for Jonathan to try and track down for
I
us.
just looked.
I
maybe
agree.
read too much into it, but it definitely looked like it was a little crooked there from the tails away shot.
I had the same thought. Saw Kyle waving at the corner workers, so still in good spirits, but definitely taking his time and taking the alternate entry into the paddock, which is really not typically where they send the winners. But nevertheless, we'll try and get to the bottom of that. McIntosh has gone the full way around as expected. You take wins any way you can get them, but I suspect he would have enjoyed battling Mike Fitzpatrick to the finish instead of having the second half, or really the final 2/3 of the race, unopposed.
Yeah, it comes out the weekend sweeping out with 2 victories, but I think you'll have enjoyed that battle rather than just cruising around by yourself. So, yeah, lots to look forward to with that championship. Hopefully we'll see a few more cars rock up to VIR in a couple of months' time, have a bit of a mid-season break. Really, that
Cars arriving in the podium area. This is what we were talking about here, Calvin. Let's look at the right rear, and I think you are eagle-eyed indeed, Cal. It doesn't look like it's...
looks like the sidewall is definitely a little
Yeah.
soft. Yeah, and right there it's definitely down. So, not sure by running off the road to
Right.
pick up that rubber, he just found a piece of carbon fiber or something sharp enough to cut down that rear tire. People celebrates with the team. Solid weekend for that group. They'll be pretty happy. I know you're always sort of pumped up after a win, think you can repeat the next day, but Kyle was just a bit too strong for him. Porsche was really handling well. Kyle was just monumental behind the wheel, but solid points for Memo Gidley, and you know, don't give him a sniff. If the others falter, he's going to keep charging through the summer months and see if he can be a factor by the time we get to Indy for the final rounds.
No question about it, and he's capable of going on a crazy run. He did so in that championship season in 2023, where he had 9 consecutive podium finishes to close out the season, 4 wins in that stretch as well. Ended up clinching the title early, won by 50 points. So he's capable of it.
Yeah, solid day. And yeah, I think with Mabo and his attitude, I mean, I think he's just so pleased to still be racing at this stage of his life. And after all of the fight that he's had to do with that huge injury that he had back at the 24 Hours of Daytona back then, and to continue to rebuild himself and to have this opportunity with a great team. Had the championship with TKO a couple of years ago, and now he gets this opportunity with Johnny O having his injury in the off-season. So he's got to be loving life. Love to win again, but he's here and on the podium again.
Yeah, and enjoying every bit of it, that's for sure. A chance to hear from our GT4 winner now with Jonathan Grace.
Well, Anthony, kind of a tale of two halves in this race for you. The beginning was a really exciting battle with the 89X Aston Martin, but the second half was a bit of a one-horse race, but still a ton of pace out of that Supra. How was that for you?
It was pretty good. Actually, it was a blessing in disguise because we're going to be racing a GT4 America later today. So we were doing ABS sweeps and traction control sweeps and checking with the brake bias. So honestly, for me, it was an excellent session. It was an excellent race because it gave me time to really push the pace and see what else I could get out of it. So I'm really appreciative of that, how it went.
Talk me through that battle with Fitzpatrick before he went off and kind of left you on your own. It looked like the two of you were nose to tail.
Yeah, he was doing an amazing job, had an amazing start. They had a great setup on their car. Their straight line speed was phenomenal. Even their corner off speed was really good. So he drove perfect, as good as anyone was going to drive that. Just made a critical error just at the wrong time. But other than that, he drove a flawless race.
Well, congratulations. I'll let you go enjoy the podium and the champagne. Your winner in GT4.
Appreciate it, Jonathan. Congratulations to Anthony McIntosh picking up that victory.
Hopefully we'll get to do it again.
Classy comments as well to his competitor today.
As you'd expect. Good respect shown between the two of them. We could tell just in the way that they raced one another over the course of the weekend. I'm not sure how much they've encountered each other before, but without a doubt, they know each other pretty well now after that strong run at the start of the race this day, race number 2, as well as in race 1 yesterday. This This is how race 2 played out. Kyle Washington from pole position swept across the nose of Memo Gidley and never was threatened. This is about as close as Gidley ever was. Rothberg in the background. An agricultural moment, kicking up some dirt. McIntosh fighting with Fitzpatrick. This was the race in GT4, really the most compelling part of the first third of the race, but Fitzpatrick drops that wheel, sends the car spinning into the wall, which left us to focus on the battle of the Corvettes. Mirko Schultes in the Callaway Corvette, Raj Schwest and the newer offering from General Motors. They were nose to tail pretty much the entire race. Memo Gidley did his best to keep Kyle Washington honest, but just too much pace today in that Porsche, and the report as well that Memo started on the scuffed tires probably did not help his cause either. For the third time this season, Kyle Washington gets to see the checkered flag first. He takes the victory here in race number 2. Mirko Schultes came out on top in the battle of the vets, holding off Raj Schwest.